Welcome to the Scandinavian Mind podcast, our weekly show about how technology is changing the creative industries. Today on the program, we take a look at the outdoor industry and its sustainability challenges, and some of the solutions that are trying to address it. We look at some of the Nordic innovations happening in the industry today. We report from Gore-Tex laboratory in Germany to hear more about their bet on durability. And we are joined by special guest Eva Karlsson, CEO of Houdini Sportswear, to talk about their new store. My name is Konrad Olsson, editor-in-chief and founder of Scandinavian Mind. And I'm here with two of my dear colleagues, Johan Magnusson, senior editor, and Erik, Sedin. How are you guys?
Very good.
Great. How are you?
I'm doing great. It feels topical to start thinking about the outdoor industry. We're moving into the fall season. I see many of our friends are getting out there doing hikes in the beautiful fall forests. And I think also people are trying to think about where they're going for their ski trips this winter. So there's a few things happening in this field, and that's why we wanted to do this special episode. Also because you, Erik, recently went to Germany to visit Gore-Tex and their laboratory. We'll hear more about that later. But I thought we'd start with talking about this issue. There's what I find is some kind of a paradox in the kind of outdoor community, in that it's an industry that addresses people's urge to be in nature, to kind of take in some of the spoils that Mother Earth gives us, while at the same time wearing equipment and clothing that are really harmful for the planet. Approximately half of what is used in outdoor clothing is made out of polyester, oil-based textiles. But there are things happening in the industry that are trying to address this, and we'll take a look at some of these issues right now. Johan, you recently wrote a story addressing three different innovations happening, or I rather say you two wrote the story together. Let's look at some of these things. Johan, maybe you can start.
Yeah, the story is called Three Brands Proving That the Outdoor Industry is a Circular Pioneer to Follow. Yeah, I think the headline says it all, and we dived into three different brands who recently had launched some kind of circular initiatives. We had Peak Performance, the North Face, and the iconic Swedish brand Lundhags. So yeah, those are front runners, and proving that, of course, as in many different sectors and aspects, the Nordics are leading the way. Obviously, not to brag, but yeah, we're quite far ahead of many different other regions and industries. Yeah.
Well, it's worth mentioning what these examples are. So let's take a look at them each one by one. I think it will be valuable. So first, we had Peak Performance that had produced 184 jackets using surplus fabrics. What's this about?
Yeah, so I was the writer of that one. It's just basically it's a upcycle project, but I just think that it works for these outdoor jackets. These block collar designs. It looks great. And Peak Performance, obviously, they could probably, if we asked them how much they love the outdoors and how much they care about the winters and stuff, they probably would be reluctant to talk about how their CO2 levels are and their footprint are. It's probably pretty bad, like with all outdoor brands. And I think that's why we wrote this. And I think it's a pretty interesting paradox, It's I think they're kind of self-conscious, these outdoor brands, kind of apologetic in a way. They kind of know that not only them kind of have a responsibility, but consumers do too. So I think they kind of have to produce these kind of things. So even though this is kind of just a 184 kind of capsule collection, upcycle collection, the outdoor industry is still pushing this really hard, and we're seeing it a lot.
It's also a very conscious end consumer, yeah, who of course are pushing the brands. These end consumers are of course pushing the brands to do more, so that it not only means like single capsule collections, but how to lower the emissions in the entire value chain.
We saw something similar from North Face, and I don't think it's a coincidence that what they're betting on is kind of recycled materials, upcycling, and so forth. I think that's where they can do the kind of the most good. Um, what are North Face doing?
It's called the Circaloft. So it's a model based on 100% recycled materials. And of course,
Hmm.
for them, it's as for all the other brands in the sector, it's super important with functionality, so that it's not only a sustainable but not that durable product, but this is designed also to be just as good as the regular conventional range. And we also have the iconic Swedish brand Lundhags. So they're very famous for their hiking boots, but they also have a clothing range. And they're quite far ahead in terms of sustainability, circularity, and such. For instance, offering like repair services for their boots in their concept stores and flagship stores. Of course, the thing is also that their boots are designed to last like a lifetime. So I don't know how well used this repairing service is, but still. And yeah, for their clothing range, they also launched a line of jackets made of 100% recycled down.
All right, good stuff. This shows that a lot of things happening in the industry right now, and obviously, it's an industry that has kind of innovation and product development in its heart. And I think it's only that's why I'm kind of optimistic about it, because these companies really do work on their products. They are developing them, even though they are in a weird way kind of late on the sustainability development. They have more to do. But let's take a look at one of the biggest brands in the industry. We have Gore-Tex, German-based utility brand. Producing these innovative fabrics that a lot of, like, performance fabrics that a lot of brands in the industry are using. And you, Erik, had a chance to visit the Gore-Tex laboratory outside of Munich recently. Tell us a little bit about what you saw there, just the high levels coming in there. What was the experience like?
It was, in a way, the first thing they showed us was this presentation, and it was about how they have their
Mm.
new EPF membrane and all that stuff. But when they show you the presentation, and it's like just so they're like four asterisks in a row after each statement. So they had all these environmental statements, but they kind of were like almost apologetic, like I said before, almost very self-conscious.
Mm.
How, okay, Gore-Tex at least historically hasn't been very well for the environment in creating these garments. So they were more like, during this presentation, they were like, we're just going to show you how durable our clothes are. So they took us to the lab, and they had a storm cube, they had a rain tower, they had like all these crazy machines that checked out the durability of stuff, of both how waterproof they were and like how well they would handle friction and stuff like that. It was pretty cool. It was cool to like check out the being in a like kind of, what do you say, like a white coat setting, and like standing there and being very
Mm.
respectful toward these doctors and these professors. What I took with me is like, the Gore-Tex brand, that having that logo on your arm or on your shoes. Some brands, it's bigger than their own their own logo, because Gore-Tex is such a
Right.
huge part of it. Like everyone wants it. It has credibility. It sounds like I've drunk in the Gore-Tex Kool-Aid, but it's true, right? And what they showed me was how in these laboratories, for example, they had like a shoe machine, like it imitated walking underwater. So they had like a puddle and a shoe walk there, and, and these German professors were like, it's gonna walk 1 million steps, and if one drip of water come inside, we send it back, because they work with like 500 thousands of brands. Any brand you can mention probably has some kind of Gore-Tex collab, right? So they test these clothes
Right.
really, really meticulously. If any kind of drip of water comes through, they send it back. Like, we don't want to work with you guys, or you have to come back with a new design. So that's kind of what they showed me. How, if, let's say, I don't know, let's say Prada or whatever did a cool Gore-Tex jacket, and they want to have zippers to the sides, and they want to have it cut real quite fabulously, might not work so well with durability and with waterproofness. So they'll just send it back, and they were quite proud about that, and I get that.
Okay, so Erik, so the issue is obviously in the material and the use of material. So what are they doing in terms of production and distribution and handling of this? Did you any findings there? Any
Uh,
learnings?
from what I took with me is that they did not push too hard on, we're recycling stuff, we're using recycled plastics. They did mention that, but they were mostly just stuck on the durability thing. But they did, like I said briefly, they did mention the EPE membrane. Before it was just a PE membrane, so the E probably means that it's environmental in some way.
Eco-friendly.
Yeah, eco PE or whatever. So it launched last year, a year ago, in the fall of 2023, and they said like, oh yeah, this is significantly lower CO2 impact. It's lighter, it's more strong, it's better in all these ways. But they did like kind of when they showed, how some companies would be like, oh, we're going to be carbon neutral by this year, this year. They were kind of, like I said, they're kind of apologetic. They're kind of conscious. They were like, they're supposed to be carbon neutral by 2050, which was kind of refreshing. It's so far ahead. It's not like they're saying like, oh, we're gonna. And I know, for example, Apple, a huge tech brand, they're gonna be carbon neutral by 2030. That's like around the corner, right? That's tomorrow. So them saying 2050 was quite interesting. There's not like trying to push it. They know they're all about durability. They have a pretty extensive collaboration with Mitt-universitetet in Sundsvall, the MIDS University in Sweden. And they have a, let's see, I got to get this right. It's a sports tech research center at the Mid University. So they're working with them to kind of have their and Mid University call us. We want to go visit, of course. It would be cool to see the labs there too. To also have kind of a third party lab that tests their stuff. So they are trying stuff. I think they are trying to create this new membrane and trying to get people to know about it, but they weren't pushing so much that it's gonna this revolutionary eco-friendly material. Really, they were mostly saying like, hey, this Gore-Tex jacket can probably pass on to your grandkids along the line, so we're trying to make it durable.
Well, points for being and transparent and honest about where they are in their development. Okay, so you went there, you flew down to Germany, you visited the lab. We have to talk about what happened afterwards because you sent some really eerie pictures in our editorial Slack channel, hanging from the cliff of a giant mountain. What happened there, Eric? Just give us a short. We all felt like we almost lost you
Yeah, I
there.
did. I thought so. I spoiler alert, almost died. But I after we went to the lab, we went to this like southern Germany. They have mountains just on the borders to Austria, and they were like, "Oh, we're gonna go on. We're gonna have three difficulties for a hike tomorrow. First one is like you go up a gondola, you're chilling. The second one, you go on a 3 hour hike, and the third one is a via ferrata, like a climb. I didn't know what via ferrata meant. I just took the hardest one because I thought it was fun. And I should have, when they asked, like when we were in this dinner the night before, they asked like, "Who's doing the hardest one?" I probably should have looked more closely at the people raising their hands because they had like these veiny, strong, broad, like climber arms raised in the sky, and then my normal arm. I probably should have said no then, and also probably should have backed out when I went to the lobby of the hotel and I saw these really experienced climbers, and then me in like cargo pants and like our regular t-shirts.
So it was you and all the climber influencers.
Exactly, but yeah, I almost died. It was an awful. I think we can get some pictures for people to see. So you have two carabiners, and there's a metal wire going up a mountain face, and then you climb up, and you have to like attach yourself with these carabiners on that metal wire. And I could never have imagined how hard it was. Like my heart was beating for my life. I thought like 3 4 times, like, did I even text my mom this morning? Like, did I tell her I love her? Like, because I thought I was gonna die. It was awful.
Well, my heart was beating when I looked at the photos you sent, and we're happy you came back safe and sound.
Yeah.
And you also went viral, or yeah, on TikTok, right? Not from the not from the mountain, but from the lab. We have
Not from the
huge
climb. Yeah.
traction at TikTok. Yeah.
Yeah. So people listening to this, you probably have already seen. I did like a little recap of the laboratory. It's for all of our Eastern European listeners. I feel like it blew up in Eastern Europe. I think it's almost like 80,000 views now. So if you haven't seen it yet, go to Scandinavian Mind on TikTok and check out my little lab tour of the Gore-Tex fabric factory. You can see how it looked and how they tried out the stuff.
All right, we are now joined by our special guest, Eva Karlsson, CEO of Houdini Sportswear, the Swedish outdoor innovator that just launched the world's first quote-unquote circular store that we're going to ask her about. Eva, thank you so much for coming on the show.
It's great to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Let's get into it. I mean, we all know Houdini as this innovator within outdoor. We can talk about some of your projects, but mostly curious about your new store that you recently launched with this kind of bold statement of being a circular store. What do you mean by that?
Well, we've been working with moving to in the transition towards circular for more than 2 decades, and it's been a lot about designing products and materials for circular flows, for sure. But if we look at the ideal setup in being circular, it's not only about how you design products or how you produce them, but also how we can create a flow of products where people can use them, borrow them, rent them, repair them, reuse them, resell them, and all of that stuff. So it's not only about production but consumption. And we've been exploring circular business models for about a little more than 10 years. That is rental. We've had reuse running for 10 years as well. And then we had a pilot with subscription a couple of years ago. And our findings is that there's clear interest and opportunities in this space. But also, one of our findings, and we've been part of the problem there, I guess, because we've designed each business model separate. So we're trying to push customers or users into separate, silos. And a lot of brands only cater to one of those circular business models, meaning that the only way to try to become a circular user or customer is by renting. But of course, it doesn't make it sustainable. There's no silver bullet like one circular business model. So what our learning is that we need to cater to, we need to provide all of them and a seamless experience where customers really can use some products you might actually want to own because you use them more or less every day. Others you might only wear one week per year, and those you want to rent. And then there's a subscription so that we can support customers in what we call living large with less, so having a small wardrobe that does more for you, or more or less everything for you. And that's a subscription where you get a few products and then you use them for like the fall season now, and then you can switch them for a slightly different setup during winter and then spring and then summer. So we're continuing to explore, but doing it on the customer's preferences and seamless.
Right, right. And can you talk about the challenges of bringing these services together into one kind of customer experience, one store? You have this store in central Stockholm. It's not the biggest one, so to have these kind of different types of concept, could it be confusing for the customer, or how do you go about sort of knowing how to serve your customer?
And that's a very good question, and we're asking ourselves exactly that. We know that this is the way forward, and we also realize that there's some learning for us to do, and we need to co-create this together with our customers, really. So now we do it, like you say, it's a small space, and that's pretty good. It's like a walk-in closet in a way. That means that there's a lot of dialogue in between the customers there and us. So we learn from each other, and but it seems to be really well appreciated and working already. So it's not that difficult. There's massive difficulties on the back end though in digital systems to support it. That's for sure. This hasn't been done before. So there's no system support. So that's what we've been developing.
I thought it was interesting. We talked about it before, how there's kind of a paradox or like a catch 22 in the outdoor industry, how many outdoor brands talk about sustainability, and all these people that are consumers and they love being outdoors, they love nature, they love part of being outside. Still, these people are perhaps some of the biggest travelers in the world, and they buy all these new stuff. I realized before you were on the show, we talked about how I went to Gore-Tex lab in Germany, and they talked about durability and stuff. And I saw how, I don't think, Houdini, you don't use Gore-Tex, do you? Why is that? I thought that was interesting.
No, well, like I said, we look at circularity from a holistic perspective, and if the way we look at resources is resources for us, like natural resources, we borrow them from the planet and future generations. It needs to go back into the system. And that means we cannot mix, and we absolutely cannot add pollutant chemicals in there. And Gore-Tex is working on this, but for a long, long time, they haven't been working on it. And there's opportunity to become much more pure, not only in removing toxic chemicals, but also going monomaterial design. Monomaterials meaning that the membrane, the waterproof membrane, is the same material as the face fabric and the inner fabric. So it's like making a technical shell layer that is recyclable at the level of a PET bottle almost. That's the way to do it. And we don't compromise with these things. And of course, Gore is a super strong brand. So for a brand like Houdini, it would totally make sense to work with Gore-Tex. But we also have our clear philosophy and direction on where we need to go. And we don't need to compromise on those things. Materials are not supposed to be mixed, and there's clearly no reason to either. So we can become much more clean in our design. And we choose to be that. Erik, you mentioned travel, and I guess we all love traveling the world and experiencing new cultures and new places. And I guess I don't think we should shy away from that. We need to figure out ways to be continuing to travel and meet other peoples and have a diverse and cool world to explore together. But anyways, there's also a lot of stuff you can do in the regional place and looking at circular flows. Maybe regional business setups is an interesting path forward. At least we think so. So global transportation of goods might not be necessary in the future. And the hub in Stockholm, Houdini Circle, is clearly a regional setup. So it's catering to the local community, and I think that when we scale this, we might want to go digital, but we're going to be careful with that, and rather have Houdini Circle land in other clusters and do those regional or local as well, and that's really interesting way to, not only enable access to Houdini products, but also then like educational. There's new ways of using products, and it's not a throwaway society that we need to live anymore. But you can also make really, really super technical gear that is might be quite expensive when you buy it, accessible to much more people. And that's also interesting to us. We're super exclusive in one way, and we don't want to be that, but we cannot compromise with social aspects or ethical aspects or environmental aspects. So we're uncompromising, but that means our products are super expensive. And then how do we make it accessible to many? And circle for us is a solution to that.
I want to get back to, you mentioned, there's a lot of work on the back end, and not to get too technical, but I'm curious, the challenges of running a brand and, collecting all these different types of services. What kind of setup do you need, and what kind of new resources in terms of technologies or competences do you need as a brand in order to innovate and push these new ways of servicing the customers out there? I'm a little curious, because many brands, from my understanding, work in a very traditional way. You have kind of some kind of research and development. There's some kind of design, but most brands in apparel are sales organizations and work with distribution and so forth. So what kind of new technologies are you looking at?
So I think one aspect of this is like having a network organization, or more like an ecosystem where we don't work in silos. So in our product design department, there's also exploration around IoT solutions. So there's a lot of cross-pollination in between teams that is extremely important, I think, in order to understand how to move forward and how to use digital tech for good. You can apply lots of digital tech to apparel, and many times, at least I don't think it makes sense. But if you can look at a product and have a low tech or no tech solution which still connects it to the user and connects it to us so that we can keep track of it. At the end of the day, we can help it make sure that it becomes recycled into something new. But in between, there's a lot of, we can help a customer sell a product that they no longer use or rent it out while they're not using it. There's a lot of opportunity like this, and we've seen nature as a blueprint for our way of designing everything around Houdini. And sometimes then we realize that digital tech actually can help us move further in that direction, which is really, really cool.
Wonderful. And talk about how this is received with your audience. Obviously, you've been around for a while. I know you have kind of like almost like a cult following among certain groups. People really love your brand. But how important is it to communicate these new innovations to the audience versus just kind of being there and servicing them with new functionalities? Do the audience care about these issues that you talk about?
I love the question. We talk a lot about this, within the company. There's a lot of hard work going on behind the scenes at Houdini, and I think there are two reasons for communicating it like we're doing now, and that is, first, there's a lot of hard work, and there's also, it's fantastic for me when the team gets a lot of recognition for great work. So that's one thing. But the other is, we're part of a sector or an industry where there's a lot of talk about why things aren't possible to do, why it's not possible to do circular, why it's not possible to pay people salaries that are reasonable. There's a lot of passivity, and I think that for us, we're showing the way that it's possible, and we're a pretty small niche company, but it's possible. So big guys, come on, let's get going, kind of. And that's also why we're open source. Not sharing doesn't share everything we do, and hopefully we can transform together rather than being one perfect brand within a sector of average brands. So it's about moving the industry forward, and that's push and pull. But then the other part of that, I think that we've been that for a long time in terms of just how we design our products, and that is, you don't care anything about sustainability, and even so you become because you buy a circular product, but then we have to make sure that they actually recycle it of the day, and who knows if they do, if they don't care. But if you design a product in the right way, nobody wants to throw it away after only a few months or a couple of years. They want to keep it because they love it. They don't only fall in love with it, but stay in love with it. And I think that is why we can kind of help transform society and the ways of consumption without being like active, or without having every customer being an activist or engaged in the issue. It shouldn't be necessary. It should be much more intuitive and attractive, and that's what we're trying to do, I guess. Make it attractive and fun, and not at all about compromise.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing those insights. Just as on an end note, is there anything else you're working on right now that you can reveal what's in store for Houdini? And also, please mention where people can find the store in Stockholm.
Yeah, it's on Norrlandsgatan, so right in the middle of the city. That's Houdini Circle, and we have our other store just corner on Kungsgatan 30. So we can support in all our hubs. We can support with repairs, and we have some vintage Houdini garments as well. But Houdini Circle is on Norrlandsgatan, and that's where we have the seamless solution in place already now. It's a pilot, so we will test it before we scale it. What's in the pipeline? There's a lot of exciting stuff, actually. We've been working on eliminating microplastics for a long time, and we have some really cool projects that will soon be launched. in that space. And then we have the organics. I don't know if you've seen, but our organics are pure enough to actually compost at the end of life. There's also a lot of new great products coming in that sector. And then we're soon, maybe in 1 month's time, we've been working on an innovation project with an American partner of ours for some years, and it's a new way of doing technical sheller that has not been seen yet, but it's monomaterial, softer than what's been possible to do so far, more durable than what's been possible to do so far, of course then circular, and of course PFAS free, and that's going to be a cool one to launch.
All right, good stuff. We have all the reason to come back to Houdini as per usual. Eva Karlsson, CEO of Houdini, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you. It's been great talking.
All right, before we leave you guys, we just want to, of course, plug our upcoming event with Beauty Innovation. We have Beauty Innovation Talks coming to Stockholm on October 25. It's going to be a full afternoon. RSVPs are rolling in, so if you want to reserve your seat, you should do it soon. Johan, getting excited? Do you feel the heat?
Definitely. After 2 events in Copenhagen, it's great to be back on home soil, and a lot of interest and a great chance to gather the industry, which is quite rare. Of course, we have the trade fairs, but those are so intense and not that they're not designed for like mingling or networking. And not so many insights, but only product launches. So we're happy to contribute to a new way of gathering for the industry.
Wonderful. Yeah, and people can look forward to a trend report, State of Beauty Innovation by Johan. We also have a great panel as well as a case study with our beauty tech partner Revive coming in from Helsinki, Finland. Look forward to that. Sign up to our our Beauty Innovation newsletter. Visit scandinavianmind.com/beautyinnovation to get access to this invite, and you'll receive all the info. Hope to see you there. And until next week, goodbye. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.